Welcome to this explainer. Right, let's jump right in because we are going on an absolute masterclass of a forensic journey today. Have you ever wondered how scientists can just look at a few scattered bone fragments and literally rebuild an entire prehistoric ecosystem from the ground up? Well, today we're doing exactly that. We're going to explore the discovery of a creature so absurdly massive that scientists at first literally refused to believe their own eyes. And we'll see exactly how they used brilliant biological math and ancient climate clues to figure out what kind of world this monster ruled. Okay, let's dive into our checklist for today. First up, the crime scene, uncovering an ancient swamp. Second, piecing together the predator. Third, Titanoboa versus modern snakes. Fourth, extreme climate and extreme size. And finally, we'll wrap up with ancient clues and a modern warning. Let's get to it. Section 1. The crime scene. Uncovering an ancient swamp. So, to set the stage, our story kicks off at this Cerrejón coal mine, down in Colombia. And this place is an unparalleled window into an ancient tropical ecosystem. To really grasp this scene, we have to wind the clock back to exactly 58 million years ago. The dinosaurs had literally just been wiped out, the Earth was hitting the reset button, and a completely new environment was starting to take over. And let me tell you, this new environment was incredibly wet. When scientists started looking at fossilized plant leaves from this site, they noticed they were unusually wide. And in the plant world, a wider leaf is basically a giant sponge. It indicates massive amounts of precipitation. So based on these ancient clues, they calculated that this area was getting pounded with a staggering 150 inches of rain every single year. To put that into perspective, the modern Amazon rainforest gets roughly 80 inches. So this ancient swamp was vastly outsoaking the wettest jungles we know today. Because of this incredibly sweltering wet setup, everything, and I mean everything, in this ancient swamp was oversized. Imagine you're standing in a steaming, muddy river basin, completely surrounded by early rainforest plants. We're talking the ancient relatives of chocolate, coconuts, and bananas. Swimming through those deep rivers are massive 7-foot-long lungfish. Basking on the muddy banks, turtles with shells literally twice the size of manhole covers. And stalking those same banks were these gigantic crocodilians called dinosaurs, stretching anywhere from 15 to 22 feet long. I mean, these beasts were absolutely formidable. But here's the crazy part. They weren't the apex predators. No, they were just setting the stage for the true lord of this jungle. Moving right along to Section 2, piecing together the predator. Okay, so let's look at the active forensic investigation of this absolute beast. Back in 2007, researchers sifting through fossils from that Colombian mine stumbled upon a single massive vertebra. A reptile specialist quickly recognized it as a snake bone, but the sheer scale of the thing completely short-circuited their brains. Dr. Jonathan Bloch, one of the paleontologists on the team, hit the nail on the head when he described the sheer shock of that moment. He said, "It's like somebody handed me a mouse skull the size of a rhinoceros and told me, that's a mouse. It just didn't seem biologically possible that a snake could produce a bone this enormous." So how do you even figure out the total size of a snake when all you've got are a few scattered spine bones? Well, it takes a brilliant piece of biological math. Step 1. The experts identified that these vertebrae had a very specific T-shaped spine, which is a dead giveaway for boid snakes. That's the family that includes boas and anacondas. Step 2. They built a mathematical model based on living snake spines. You see, modern giant snakes don't just keep adding more and more bones indefinitely. Eventually, those individual vertebrae just get bigger. Finally, Step 3. By plotting the intricate joints and ridges of these ancient bones as coordinate points on a graph, they could literally extrapolate the total length, and the math revealed an astonishing length of 42 to 49 feet. And based on those exact same calculations, the weight of this apex predator is just a total gut punch, 2,500 pounds. That means Titanoboa was as heavy as a small rhinoceros, and literally the length of a full-size school bus. For this creature, massive wasn't a fluke. Enormous was the rule. But you know, the real holy grail of this whole forensic dig came a few years later when they finally, against all odds, found a skull. Snake skulls are made up of these incredibly delicate, loosely fused bones that usually just disintegrate and wash away when the animal dies. So finding one intact, it was a literal miracle. And this skull was the crucial missing puzzle piece. It had this unique hinge bone connecting the lower jaw to the skull, which meant the back of the jaw could extend way, way past the brain, meaning Titanoboa could open its mouth unbelievably wide. It wasn't just grabbing tiny lungfish. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't just eating fish at all. It was purpose-built to swallow those massive manhole-sized turtles and giant 20-foot crocodilians whole. Section 3. Titanoboa versus modern snakes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing how this prehistoric monster actually stacks up against what's alive today. A really large boa constrictor today might hit 14 feet and weigh about 100 pounds. A massive anaconda, maybe slightly over 20 feet and up to 500 pounds. But structurally, Titanoboa was related to boas, while behaviorally, it acted exactly like an anaconda, a completely aquatic swamp dweller. Except, of course, Titanoboa was more than twice as long and 5 times as heavy as the absolute biggest modern anacondas out there. Its densely packed teeth were perfectly adapted for grabbing slippery prey and ruling its watery domain. Section 4. Extreme climate, extreme size. Which brings us to a massive scientific mystery. We know exactly how big it was, sure, but we have to ask the obvious question, how on earth did a snake get so incredibly huge? I mean, it wasn't magic, right? To answer this, we have to make a hard pivot from paleontology, which is the study of ancient bones, right into paleoclimatology, the study of ancient weather. And the answer here lies in a really fascinating fundamental biological rule called cold-blooded body mass. Titanoboa, just like the snake slithering around today, was a cold-blooded animal. Its internal body temperature, and therefore its metabolic rate, was entirely dependent on the outside temperature of its habitat. Put simply, reptiles can only grow to these monstrous sizes in incredibly warm climates because the ambient heat out in the environment literally provides the energy they need to maintain their huge bodies. So extreme heat literally birthed these giant monsters. When scientists reverse engineered Titanoboa's body mass using data from modern anacondas, they landed on a frankly startling data point. To simply maintain a 2,500-pound body, Titanoboa required a mean ambient temperature somewhere between 86 and 93 degrees Fahrenheit. That is relentlessly, constantly sweltering. To put that into context, the absolute hottest average temperature for a modern tropical forest is around 82 degrees. Titanoboa's world wasn't just warm, it was a true steaming hothouse. Section 5. Ancient Clues, Modern Warning. Now, remember those ancient wide plant fossils we talked about at the very beginning? Well, it turns out they don't just act as ancient rain gauges, they are also highly accurate ancient thermometers. By studying the carbon isotopes and the sheer density of pores on those fossilized leaves from Cerrejón, scientists made a huge discovery: that ancient atmosphere held 50% more carbon dioxide than we have today. That is the real culprit here. It was this massive, natural concentration of greenhouse gases that cooked up the sweltering, incredibly productive forest capable of supporting a 40-foot snake. And this brilliantly illustrates a crucial point about climate change. You see, Titanoboa and its lush, superheated ecosystem were actually in perfect harmony. But that high CO2 environment developed very gradually over millions and millions of years. It gave the plants and animals vast stretches of time to evolve and adapt. In stark contrast, modern climate change is incredibly rapid. We're pumping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and triggering similar warming effects, sure, but we are doing it over the course of just 200 years. It's the blink of an eye. Which leaves us with this really provocative, vital question to ponder. If prehistoric life needed millions of years to safely adapt to a hothouse Earth, the exact kind of Earth that supported monsters like Titanoboa, can our modern ecosystems possibly survive a drastic climate shift happening in just 2 short centuries? The fossils of Cerrejón show us exactly what a hotter Earth looks like, but they also serve as a stark reminder that the hardest thing to comprehend about the past is just how incredibly different it was. Thanks for joining me on this wild ride through the ancient world of Titanoboa. I'll catch you next time.